Hi and welcome to the new virtual production webinar. Today we will be covering the first part of virtual scouting. I decided to divide the virtual scouting in at least 3 parts since it's a very huge topic and I want to go slow as usual in explaining step by step whatever it's happening. We will be doing a little bit of live blueprinting tonight since a few things using our friend blueprintue.com are not working exactly as expected, so we need to recreate or create our own blueprint. But let's get started. Okay. So what's happening now? So we start with the pawn. This is the same pawn we created last time. Same thing, okay? But tonight we will be doing something different. So we will be unpairing the camera from the motion controller and we will bring underneath the scene root. We do this because sometimes when you attach the camera to the motion controller, there's a bit of an offset. Even if in the viewport it seems everything to be online, when you spawn it at the beginning of the game, there's a bit of an offset in both translation and rotation. It's very tiny, but when you need them to be precise on whatever it's happening, it will be causing issues. We will see later what I mean. So from the pawn, we start by creating a beginning play event where we will be creating a reference to the UI. Tonight we will be covering a nice interesting topic that it's blueprint communication. Means that we will having 4 different blueprints that will be communicating one to each other, and to do that we need to create references in each blueprint we want to communicate to. So in this case the pawn will be communicating only with the UI, so we need to get all widget of a class, in this case our UI, and from the list of all these widgets of this class, like it's just one, we get the reference of a copy of the first one, and now we create a variable and we call it 101_UI. Okay, so very simple. We created a reference we will be using later in this webinar. Compile and save. Now we bring our blueprintue.com and we go down and we Control A, Control C, we copy and paste the code and we paste here. Control V. This was just a reminder for me to create UI references, so I'll get rid of it. And now we have an event tick function that will be checking the position of the motion controller, position and rotation and scaling, all the transformation, and assign to the scene camera. This will allow us to be sure that camera and motion controller are in the exactly same spot. We will be doing something more here, and so for the scene root and for the motion controller we will be keep storing information about their location. For now just leave as it is, save and compile. When you will see that the variable is gray, you just right click here and you create the new variable. This is because when you copy and paste the blueprint from somewhere else, if you don't have those variables, the software will put the variable in gray and asking you if you want to create those variables or not. In this case we do. We put it nice and clear here and we call webinar 201. We need a little bit of more space since we will be creating a few other things later. Okay, nice and easy. Now we need to create a new blueprints for this webinar. So the first one is the actor. and the actor would be the 201 underscore bookmark blueprint. It is exactly like an object that we will be spawning in the environment as a reference to our location. And then we need the button. Sorry, we need to create a widget, and we will be calling BPW underscore mark button. Here we go. So what we're doing now, we will be creating and passing information in between the poem, the actor, the new widget, and the UI. I've placed that way because this is the way I'm building things. So we just created the new things on the poem. We now be working on the new bookmark, and then we pass to the button and then to the UI, and then we will go back the same way. So it's pretty straightforward, hopefully whatever we're doing, and easier to follow. Because sometimes when you do things in between blueprints, it's confusing which is the blueprint you are typing or copying and pasting things. So I try to be more clear as possible, like doing things like, you write from left to right and then you check from right to left. So yeah, let's create a cylinder. So we add the cylinder, we scale it like very thin, and we place like on 20 unit up, and then underneath the root again I place a text render. Text render, we place it at, would say, like 150, and we align to center because it's more nice. Good. This is everything you need to know. You need to do. Or what's this? This thing, the circle plus the text, will be spawned again in the environment, so you will see where you have placed the bookmark and which is the bookmark we have been placing, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Now we go into the event graph, and we do the first copy and paste of our blueprint UE. This is the bookmark actor. Ctrl A, Ctrl C, and Ctrl D. Okay, what's happening here? So we have created a custom function that's called new bookmark. So whenever the bookmark is spawned, the function will be called, and what it does is to set the number of this bookmark and apply it to the text with the color. So we need to create this variable again, as we saw before. The variable is gray because it's not existing yet, but we right click and we create the variable. Now it's there. Very simple function. Save and compile. That's it. So now we can move to the bookmark, to the bookmark button. And so we create the button. We place a bit of a text on top of it, and we set the button top left, size to content. This is good, this is good. Good. So we now go to the graph again, and here we create two variables. One is a bookmark name. So bookmark name is a string, and a bookmark number. That's number. In this case it's an integer. So far we are happy. We will see later, we will add a function here, but for the moment, when we will start calling the button, we just need to set these two variables, so we don't need yet any function for the moment. So again, we did this free. Now we move to the UI. In the UI, we simply add a place where attach the button dynamically. In this case, I'm using a scroll box. Attach the scroll box to the UI, bring on top, anchor top left, and we say position Y like 300, and size on X like 300 again, and Y size like 500. Okay, this is the area where our buttons will appear. If you create more than a certain number of buttons, because it's a scroll box, you will have the nice thing to even scroll on, so you can create infinite number of buttons. Oops, this is from last webinar 1.1. Good, so we keep it our thing clear. And we go again to the blueprintui.com. We get the 201 UI updates. We Control A, Control C, and Control V here. Let's bring down a little bit, and let's create like webinar 201. Good. So don't compile for the moment, because we need to do a bit of a things now. So because we have copy from a different project that used to use things that were or called differently or replaced differently, so it's not recognizing, but it's nothing bad. So what's doing here, it's again a custom function that whenever we create a new button, in this case, because it's dynamically created, we need custom functions to call all the informations. So we created for the blueprint here, for the bookmark blueprint, it's called only when the bookmark is spawned, and in this case this function is called only when the new bookmark button is created. So we need a bookmark button, that it's this guy, and we need to set the two variables. We just set it here. You see, you remember we have placed like a variable name and a variable number. We do the same here, but we call set bookmark, and we call set number. You have to do this way. You have to call out from here, because these two variables are coming from here. So if you don't create the new widget and drag out this information from here, you won't be able to set these two variables. Okay, so we set two variables with the name. The name will be a string with the number, so it would be bookmark dash whatever. This is an integer again, so we create a variable, it's an integer, and we need to set this integer. So when we call this function, we call this number to set these two variables, and at the end we add 1, so the next time will be 1, and then 2 and 3 and so on. Another thing we need to do, or actually we want to do, is creating an array of transformations. An array is a list, basically, a list of information. In this case, it's a list of transformations, and it's a list of transformation of our camera. So whenever we call this function, we get the information of transformation of the cine camera, and we add an item to the list. So for example, when you press the first time, it would be bookmark 0, and the information of the camera will be stored in the index 0 of this array, and so on. When you press another time, because this number, it became from 0 to 1, it will be bookmark 1, it will be stored with the name and number, and it will add another item to the index, so it will be index 1. And so when you press the button, it will be identifying the index and will retrieve information from this list. So this line is done. Oh yes, we are adding, after we've done everything, we need to add the widget to the UI. And in this case, we add the widget to our scroll box. We need to set the scroll box to a variable, otherwise it won't work. here it is, and we change this variable. In the blueprint I have copied, the variable was called scrollbox bookmark. Our is called scrollbox84, so we need to change it. In order to change it, you drag from here into the left corner and it's changed. So this function does two things. So the first thing is this one, setting the new bookmark widget with all the informations within the list and adding to the scroll box. The second thing it does, it's spawning the the actual bookmark. So the bookmark is our 201 bookmark BP. Again, it's lost the reference to his own variable, so we need to set the bookmark number, get rid of this guy, and we add here. Okay, so it should be all good. We save and compile. Oh, why we are subtracting 1 to here? Because when this first line is over, this number, it will be increased by 1. So if you want, because it's done before this, when you go back and you recall it, you want to subtract 1 to get the original number. Okay, here it comes the funny part. So we call the bookmark event now. So we have our bookmark spawned. We set the bookmark number, and then we need to call the bookmark itself so that we can set the text here, right? So we change this text to the number we are actually using as a new bookmark. So what was it called? New bookmark. So you see we are communicating from one blueprint to the other. So from here, from the bookmark, I drag out the guy and I say new bookmark. Okay, cool. So new bookmark. Done, save and compile. No error, so far so good. Okay, now we start getting backwards. So from now that the UI is set and it's working correctly, or at least that's what it say when we compile it, now we go backwards and we add the functions that are needed. So we go here and we need to add the event when we click the button. So we select the button, we go down, we select onClick event, we create the onClick event, we leave it here, and we grab the new Blueprint UE web page. Here it is, onClick event, Control A, Control C, Control V. Okay. Do not compile now. First, the onClick event is not the one we're using because our is called button 68. This is button bookmark, so we get rid of it. And now we need to do a couple of things. So when we click the button, we need to retrieve information from the UI, the array from the UI, the one we just created here. So we need to retrieve information for that specific one. So we need to click the button, get the UI reference, and get the number of the button you are clicking, so that you can get the information of the index of that array. And then you have to set the position of the pawn to that location. Here we do a little bit of math that we will be discussing in a minute. So for now, at the beginning of play here, that in this case, because it's a widget, it's called event construct, we need to create references for both UI and pawn. As we do it as we did before, we get all widgets of a class. The class we want is our UI. Within the list of the old UIs, lucky we have one, so we get a copy of the first one and we set a variable as a reference for this one. And then we need the pawn, so we cast in this case to 101 pawn. The pawn is a player pawn, so we get the player pawn reference, player pawn reference object, oops, and we set the variable as a reference as well here, and we call 101 underscore pawn. Oh, this one it's 101 underscore UI. Okay, good. What we're doing here, when the game starts, this widget gets information for these two objects so that we can then, when we click it, get the reference of it. Even if it says that it's so good now here, it's not. So we need to get the UI. What we need a bookmark. So we get bookmark array. We get rid of these two guys and we can call it. I'm not sure why it's doing this, but this is what you need to do, otherwise it's not working. And we call a new pawn, the root component is fine, and then we need to call these two variables we just created at the very beginning of the webinar, and we will see now why we need them. So one is the get vive current location and get motion controller current location. So what are we doing here? So we subtract the position that every tick we have of both motion controller and vive. When we click at the bottom, we do the subtraction of this. So we basically reset the position of these two, and then we add the new position that we are retrieving from the array here. It's a bit weird, I think, but this is the way working, and then I will show you more practically later. Now that we have set up everything here, we can connect our on-click event. And if we're lucky, yeah, we're lucky, it's working. Last thing we need to do is going back. As you see, we're at the end of the path, so we did back and forward and back, and we need to create the event finally. So when we keyboard, nope, let's do like v key. Let's look for I get the V, you can get of course anything you like. Okay, when we press the key V, what we do, we need the reference of the UI, because we will be calling this function now. So we can see now that, so when we press the key, we need the function from here. What was it called, the function? Add bookmark. So we need the add bookmark function, and here it's where everything starts. So all the cascade of things that will be happening now starts from here. Save and control. So we press key, we call the bookmark event, add bookmark event here. We will be creating the widget, storing information for those variables, the name and the number. The first one will be 0, of course. Then we get the information from the camera, where the camera is at that moment. We store everything within the widget, and we add the widget to the scroll bar, and we add 1 to the number of the widget, so that the next time we call it, it will be 1, and then 2, and then 3. And the second thing we do, we spawn the actual bookmark, we set the number, and we call the function here. If you double click here, as you can see, the cascade again of the thing. So we will be setting this and render the new text here no longer as a text, but as a number of the number here we have just set. So everything should be good now. Let's see if it is. So we save all, we play. Oh, let me do something just for the sake of simplicity. So we get to the camera, we open the focus and we set to none, so everything will be in focus from now. Okay, we saved it and now we try and see if everything is working. I'm now handling my motion controller, everything is in focus, and if I'm using the keyboard as we were setting up last time, I'm moving around, and then if I press the V key on the keyboard, so we created and we gave it the right number, and then if we do then again we create a new one that is okay. So it's working, but I know what's happening and I'm sure you understood as well. So we place another one. You see 0, 1, 2, and if I click on 0, I'm on 0. So this is what I was mentioning before. When we do that math of subtracting the the motion controller position from the root scene position and then adding the new transformation location, that's what's happening. So we reset the position of the scene root, so that when we move the motion controller, actually the root, back to here, the motion controller will be just exactly on top of it. If you don't do that math, for example, let's say you physically walk away 2 steps from here, then when you call back again that position, you will have this location plus the 2 feet you have walked away if you don't reset your root, your scene root position. As you can see now, I'm facing down and I'm exactly on the spot of the first one, and now I was exactly on the spot of the second one, and then I want to go back on 0, and I'm on 0, and I'm on 2 now, and so on. I can place as many as I want, and as you can see, here they are, nice lined up, and I have a scroll bar appearing now. So if I want to, as you can see, I can add as many as I want. Okay, let's go back and fix the bug, and it's very simple. So here, when we call this function, everything is working fine, but we forgot here to the button to go to the designer and tell to this one to be bind to the bookmark name. You see, that's what was happening. I was just having this text because this text was not binding to anything. So let's go back here. Again, I'm getting the motion controller, moving back, and then if I press the button, the first bookmark is here. Now it's correct. Now I get the second one, and now I get the third one, and again, very simple. Okay, good. Let me check around. 0, 3, 2. Good. Let's just try 1 on 2. We face down, that's 2. Yeah, good. So now it's working. As we did last time, now we close this project and we open a new one where we will place our virtual camera. So I've downloaded from the marketplace just a free environment, a cartoon environment. And what I'm doing here now, it's from here within the content of our project, I'm copying our folder. I copy and I paste into the new content into the content of the new scene. Paste. Simple as that. We start the project. Vibe is connect. Here we go. Everything seems to be in place. Let's see. This is the bookmark button and the bookmark actor we have just created. So it looks good. So I go into here, maps, and the village showcase. Showcase. Here we go. Before starting, let's remember you have to set in the word settings the 1-1 game mode, and also here in the maps and mode, remember to set the 1-1 game mode, so in order to get our virtual camera working. And so we can now play it. Here is the camera in my hand. I'm moving around, going down a bit. I like this spot here on the pathway, so drop a bookmark. And here is my mark. My mark is number 0, so this is fine. I want to go down here to closer to the water. I like this spot here, and I set the bookmark, and the bookmark is there. So let's change the camera lens because it's very tight and don't see much. So yeah, I'm changing to 65. Let's go back to 25, 18. Yeah, the UI is not really readable. So this is the bookmark 1. That one is the bookmark 0. And we're moving around, and if we click on bookmark 1, now we're on the bookmark 1, and if we click on bookmark 0, now we're on bookmark 0. Yeah, everything is working fine. So next time we will be learning how to actually add on this side of the UI the same thing of the bookmark but for camera, and we will have a nice little thumbnail that will be not just telling us where we place the camera, but also like a little reference here just to have an idea where we place the camera. Thanks for joining me tonight again, and hope to see you soon. Ciao.